Welcome to month 6 of Woman Time Immersion, and this is the topic for this month is love, sex, and relationships. And we have a woman who has strongly influenced my life and who is an amazing mentor and a dear friend. And her name is Diana Richardson. And she is the author of many books now on sexuality and relationships. And we have both co-authored Tantric Sex and Menopause. And also Diana is the creator, along with her husband Michael, of the Making Love Retreat, which has been running in Europe or around the world for over 25 years now. So I'd like to welcome Diana.
Great, Janet. Hi.
Yeah.
Lovely to have this meeting with you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure. And, I remember the first time that I arrived in Switzerland, and it's about 10 years ago, and just bounding up the stairs and just seeing you there. And we immediately had a connection somehow. It was just very beautiful and warm to meet you. And I think one of the things that really struck me about you is how available and humble you are, and how there were no airs and graces, about you. And that's what I really appreciate.
Oh, that's sweet, Janet. Well, it has your friendship and your interest in this approach is really so wonderful. And so thank you for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a beautiful, collaboration over the years, hasn't it? And, I'd really have to say that your work, it just lit a light bulb inside of me, when I read that first book, The Heart of Tantric Sex, and I kind of feel like it was a lifesaver. And I know a lot of women and men as well, but a lot of women in particular who say the same thing about that book and about Tantric Orgasm for Women in particular, and hopefully about our menopause book too. I guess I have this feeling that what you have created is actually going to stand very strongly moving forward for generations moving forward. I feel really strongly about that, and that's why I was, so honoured to be part of the teaching. And so I'd love to just hear, or for you to share with the women, how it all started. How did all this begin for you? Where did this all start, this work?
Right. Well, I have to say at the outset is that I had no idea that the little steps that I took in my early 30s would end up with me in this situation I am today, author of many books. And like you say, people are saying this is like a new foundation. So the most important thing is that I had no goal, no ambition. When I'm in my early 30s, I had a feeling that there had to be more to sex. I was anyway a very body-oriented person, crazy about massage, body work, and teaching that and everything. It must have been in the early 1980s that I first heard the Barry Long Making Love tapes. Now, I had been with Osho already many years. He talked about Tantra.
Yes.
And, actually, at the time when I was with Osho, he was not talking about it. He spoke about it already in the 1970s. So I was reading books or listening to the talks in audio. So there was always this question when I read Osho, was like, all sounds good, but how do you do it with the penis and vagina? Because that's ultimately the two elements it comes down to. And then through listening to Barry Long and following his guidelines, I really came to understand how to use the penis and vagina. And then when I read Osho again some years later, or, I'm always, anyway, I was with him in India and everything. After quite some years of practice of a new relationship with the penis and vagina, I suddenly understood everything Osho said. So, it was like filtering through my own body and coming to these understandings. So, yeah, and it just changed everything.
Yeah.
So I'm totally, without those two inputs. So I don't think I've created anything new. I think it's very old. It's
Mm.
ancient.
Mm.
I've brought it more into the light. And because I'm a body person, it's very body oriented. In other words, practical rather than um, theoretical.
Yes.
So yeah, it has been a surprise that this kind of innocent steps or that I took, early 30s, had a lover who was also interested, and we made love a lot,
Mm-hmm.
really, really a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that created within me a new foundation. And yeah, it just changes your life. If you change your sex, you change your life. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's amazing today. There's so much available for people to do on a personal growth level. But sex is the deepest way to reach into yourself.
Mm.
And it's often the very last corner that people look in. So it has been amazing over the years to see the kind of response, like you say, to the books and so on,
Mm.
that people know the truth
Mm.
very often. They know that, I knew that, but we don't trust ourselves.
Yes.
And this is the biggest problem. And also, um, we're quite, we, we get pretty identified with the style of sex that we are accustomed to having.
Mm.
And so that identification then blocks the interest or the curiosity. Um, so it does need a little courage, but anything needs courage, really. And it's just courage to be more natural. So in that sense, it just helps to move the masks that we've received from the society.
Mm, beautiful. And it's so true. It is, that's what I think I was so taken by your approach. It's just so user friendly. It's so practical and so accessible. It's, doesn't follow the esoteric path so much, even though the esoteric is part of it. And I think that's why, I just love it. It's, yeah, user friendly. So, yeah, fantastic. And so, can I just, what would you say was the essence? Because maybe not many people know Osho, who he was, but the essence of his teaching around that you received from him around Tantra, and the essence that you took also from Barry Long.
Well, with Osho, he was accessing these ancient tantric teachings, and so he brought them from a long way back into the present.
Mm.
So, his is a tantric teaching.
Yeah.
He's a tantra master, and the whole tantric, you know, philosophy or understanding is that it is possible to bring sex and meditation together.
Mm.
So sex becomes an access to the spiritual world, whereas usually sex and spirit are considered two separate kind of polar opposites. So through tantra and accessing awareness, inner body connection, inner body magnetism, you can elevate sex where it becomes a transforming experience.
Mm.
And with Barry Long, like I said, the essence was how to bring more awareness into the penis and vagina and not to move in the established ways, like with a
Mm.
lot of friction and building up excitement to orgasm, rather to relax. Now, that's also very much part of Tantra. So I don't know really where Barry Long got his threads from.
Yeah.
But it's to change the sex act into something which arises through the body intelligence in the moment,
Mm.
rather than, we have so many ideas about sex, how it should be, how it should behave, what outcome there should be. And of course, there's always this climax. So we believe that the climax is the reason to have sex. And this makes problems.
Mm.
For men, often there's premature ejaculation, and for women, there's often no ejaculation. Sorry, no orgasm. And then, of course, we have a problem. But one thing Osho said, if you change the way you have sex, you don't have problems anymore. But if you're in the conventional style, you will have problems.
Mm.
So it's a lot to do with our psyche. We've been imprinted and conditioned through the society, through the ideas, through the secrecy. We've been imprinted with sex in a certain way. So that's why we all follow the same pattern.
Mm.
There are people who don't get imprinted, but this is very, very rare. I mean, I've had lovers here and there who just totally knew the present moment. And without any, they were just naturally in that space. But this is extremely rare. The rest of us, we in this build-up pattern. And this is more to do with the psyche and not to do with the body. In fact, our body is following our psyche.
Mm.
So to start to bring a change, you have to start to change your mind and then, bring it into a body level. And then the minute you bring it into more of a body level, that starts also to change your mind. So the two things kind of go hand in hand. And, like I said, I was not looking for anything. I was just doing it.
Yes.
And then, I noticed many changes immediately. Like I was much more present in my life, in my body, more natural. My relationship with men changed.
Mm-hmm.
No more games. My relationship with women changed. No more competition.
Right. Sorry, what did you say with men? How did it change?
No more games. No more games.
Games. Great. Yes.
Yes. It's like pushing and pulling, and also just to see that as a woman, I needed a lot of attention from men, and a lot of my self-worth was dependent on how many guys liked me, if men looked at me or not. But when you kind of bring this whole sexual element, down to earth and in a more natural way, you just start to be, more normal and
just more yourself, I guess.
More yourself, exactly.
Yeah, without all, like you say, the layers and the veils and the masks.
And that I had a lot of revelations along the way. Like I say, I wasn't looking for anything, so things came. And suddenly it was like, oh, now I understand this. And then some months later, another click, and now I understand. So it was, the more you practice, the more things become clear for you. And in the, over 30 years now that I've been involved in this, I've never ever asked anybody a question because there was nobody to ask.
Yes.
I didn't have that kind of contact with either Barry or Osho that I could sit down and have a chat.
Right.
And besides that, I didn't have any questions. What's the questions? Rather, understandings came. So there is a tendency I've noticed in people, now I've been teaching for 25 years, people love to ask questions. And they love to know before how it's going to be.
Yes.
Rather than just step in and see what happens. So today I am able to answer questions. And I'm, and that's without ever having been able to ask a question or even having a question. So is more what I'm trying to convey is that just experiment, try things out.
Yes.
You don't need to know what's going to happen for you to do it. You do it and see what happens,
Yes. Yes.
And so one of the difficulties in teaching, and you are teaching the Making Love Retreat as well, which is wonderful in Australia, is that through presenting a body of material, naturally one creates ideas for people. But what to do? So we always say to participants, Michael and I, we are aware we're creating goals and ideas and expectations, but it's like that.
Yes.
But so really to just bring it down step to step, the whole thing is homeopathic. We have such great expectations about sex. The moment it doesn't work exactly according to our wishes or what we want, we have a problem or there's a crisis, we can't, we're just not innocent. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and a lot of it is to do with expectations. But essentially, it's like an unwinding, is what I can say. An unwinding of certain patterns. And it's so fascinating, really.
Yeah.
And that's just what kept me going. I just felt so different as a person. And, each time just to like see, feel, and then, talk with my partners afterwards and like deconstruct something. And in doing that, planting the roots for another kind of growth.
Beautiful. And
having a little rave here.
I love it. Keep going. It's beautiful. Because that's like you say, it's organic. It's something that arises without the mind, being involved. It's just an innocent exploration, really, because I find too, at the retreats, sometimes, couples go, well, tell us what to do, and it is the mind wanting to know the answers rather than using the body and going through the experiences.
Yes, yes. And I mean, I can say, it's about awareness and bringing awareness into an act that has become very mechanical and mind-driven.
Yes.
And that is the essence. So, yes, like you say, people want to know what to do. And we always say it's not what you do, but how you do
it. Exactly.
And as soon as you bring awareness into anything, walking, cooking, kissing, whatever, it changes. So, people think it's like replacing one thing with another thing, but it's more like transforming what we know into another expression or flow. But it needs practice. But like I say, it's really fun, really fascinating, and it does open up a new life vision. Like you said, for you it was a lifesaver.
Absolutely.
And
yeah. And I think the thing that really changed me or really helped me was the understanding of the polarities. That a man's body and is different to a female's body. And that was just so incredibly enlightening. And yet it's the basis of Tantra, really, isn't it? Or one of the foundations.
Yes. And this is one of the problems that is faced in sex today, is that we don't understand the woman's body needs more time to warm up and open up. So, we all women know that they would like more time. Of course, when you first meet somebody and, there's a lot of presence and more connection, one is naturally more open. But as soon as, we get more accustomed to each other and that level of presence goes down, and then very often women are just saying yes to men to please men, without listening to their own bodies. And every woman knows, I would like to have more time before man enters me. Yeah. So this is also part of our imprinting. And that sexual energy in men is raised very quickly, and sexual energy in women is raised very slowly, because we are equal, but we are opposite forces. And so man is like a dynamic, moving force, and woman is a receptive, absorbing force. Dynamic doesn't mean activity and friction and so on. It means when man is present in his body, there's this intrinsic flow of vitality out through the penis. And when woman is present, the vagina has this capacity to receive energy. So receptivity is not passivity.
Mm.
Receptivity is pure presence,
Yeah.
and Barry Long has this fascinating line that I played with for years, actually, where he talks to says to women to be passionately undemonstrative.
Mm.
And that is really, so it's not about doing something, it's just about being totally there, but not stepping out of oneself.
Mm.
And yeah.
Yeah, I love that term. It really
Yeah.
struck me too when I first read it in your book, Tantric Orgasm for Women. And it's something that I quote quite a lot. It really describes, it makes your mind go, oh, what does that mean? And then, oh, I'm going to experiment with that. That's,
Right,
yeah,
right.
passionately undemonstrative.
And the thing is, what we call passion is actually lust.
Yes.
Passion is pure presence. Lust is driven in a direction. So it's kind of
Mm.
more goal oriented.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I think that's a great distinction because there's so much confusion around that. And, I see on Facebook and, different things just like, you know, be lusty, be juicy, be all of these things. And yeah, it's just really interesting. I really love that distinction between passion and lust. And it
Right.
explains a lot, I think. Yeah. Because it's not
And
about forgetting passion. I mean, passion can be there. It's just, yeah, doesn't have that direction.
and it's more about being, because our whole sexuality, or the way we go in sex, is very extrovert. So it's about being
Mm.
more introvert.
Mm.
Not introverted and closed off, but more with awareness inside the body. And this is the big shift that women have to make, and men also. But if woman makes it, and this is the power of woman then creates a field and a space around her that will help draw a man into
Mm.
another level of relating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's a really good point because I think a lot of the time women feel like they don't have much power in this sexual relationship and in that dynamic. And I think it's important for women to hear you say that we do have a lot more influence than what we think, and it's going in a different direction to what we imagine, more internal than external. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So, you know, I'd have to say that relationships really is like the biggest mystery on the planet, I think, these days. And why do you think? And maybe we've just answered that question, but why do you think they are so tough? Why do you think they are so much of a challenge?
I think there's quite a few levels to it. And, like we've talked, we're very heavily sexually conditioned. Men are very conditioned, more than women, but women also on a more subtle level, but equally
Mm.
powerful. And it's this mind-filledness, ideas and goals and getting hot. And plus, there's no education. There's nobody guiding us.
Mm.
It's all assumed that we should know, that it's instinctive. Um, and then also, there's a lot of emotions and unexpressed feelings around, which also brings a lot of problems into relationships because we don't know how unexpressed feelings then can easily come into the present, and cause separation and difficulties. So if there was more education on an emotional level,
Yeah.
learning, realizing that emotions are unexpressed feelings, and then which can go way back to childhood,
Mm.
and these cause a disturbance in the system, and they can get activated in the present. So when these flood into the present, we experience, a separation, disconnection from the partner, a lot of blaming and trying to, make them, well, trying to,
Make them wrong or make them the
yes, very
yeah.
self-righteous, trying to change the other person. And essentially, this level of reality is very toxic.
Mm.
And it really can destroy love if there's no awareness around it, especially if it goes on for many, many years. And so the whole thing is also to start honoring the feelings and giving them a place. And in this level, Barry Long was really great. He talked about the difference between emotions and feelings, and these are two totally different worlds. Osho did the same, but in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's why I wrote that book, Tantric Love, Feeling versus Emotions.
Yeah.
Because it's such an important point. So it's like two threads that stand parallel. One is a new style of sex, and the other is getting clear about feelings and emotions, taking responsibility for emotions, not letting that toxicity come into the present.
Mm.
And for many couples, we've, over the years have said, those two pieces were essential for a change in our life, so that the emotions, feelings thing stands equal to the shift in the lovemaking. But ironically, that the conventional style of making sex does produce unexpressed feelings that then go into emotions. And when you change your style of sex, then there's no more of this build-up of tension and unexpressed feeling on a subtle level. So changing the way you make love also changes your kind of emotional patterns and states and so on.
Absolutely. And I think, I think that's what's so kind of groundbreaking around your work, is that you have combined emotions and feelings with the tantric teachings, and it's in that way I feel like it's really holistic. And also there's not many people who talk about feelings and emotions in relation to sex, because like you say, sexuality and the sexual relationship itself can bring up so much between a couple. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So what I'm curious about, we're talking about making love and talking about, the couple, and not all women are actually in relationships. So some women are single. What's your advice to women around tantra, around possibly self-pleasuring, if that's something that they might want to do? What would you say to women when they're in the single phase?
Well, I would say one of the problems is that as women, if we don't have a man, we feel like half a woman. So there is this huge identity as a woman in having a man at your side. And so if a man is single, he doesn't think of himself as half a man.
So true.
So as women, we have to start feeling complete in ourselves, independently of man. And that is true for women in couples also. So I'm not so keen on this distinction between women in a relationship, women out of a relationship, because you talk to women, and I do many, many women's groups, and all women in a relationship will admit that when they have a man, they lose themselves in the man. No? So they step to the side and they put man in the center.
Yes.
So as women, we have this basic thing that it's to be married, to have a partner, then we're all whole. And, that has to change. And start to realize that, as an individual woman, you are beautiful and you are perfect. And if you're in a couple, start to see how you lean over and lose yourself.
I love that, because I think what can happen for women is that leaning over and losing herself. Sometimes she feels like she has to leave the relationship to find herself again. And in hearing what you're saying, maybe that's not absolutely necessary. It's really about, finding one's ground.
yeah, to find yourself again, you don't have to change your location
Yeah.
or your partner. You
Yeah,
have to look
exactly.
inside yourself. So
Yes.
in that way, it kind of, you become more independent without cutting off from something.
Yes. Yeah.
You're more self-nourishing. You're more self-sustained. You're not
Mm.
looking to man for validation.
Mm.
And sometimes when I just see the lengths that women go to get some attention from men, I mean, how some women dress,
Mm.
it is so sad.
Mm.
So sad.
Yeah.
And so we are, quite provocative in the way we dress. Not
Mm.
everybody, of course, but just generally, to get man's attention. And this, at the same time, that then generates a kind of a lust, or like a distortion in man's perception of women as objects, and we present ourselves as objects.
Mm.
I'm not in any way condoning at all this sexual abuse or crossing of sexual boundaries at all. But I think it is important that we as women just start to be a little bit more honoring ourselves,
Mm.
rather than honoring this thing that, you know, or not honoring, but being imprinted and following this thing about men, wanting to look attractive to men. And that if a man is not looking at you, that you don't feel like you're a woman. I mean, I lived in Italy for a long time, and I was amazed with myself because we lived in the forest and near a tiny little village
Mm.
where there was a little piazza outside the coffee bar with benches. And in Italy, the men sit outside in the piazza. Any town you
Yes.
go to, there's all the men sitting there. The women are inside.
Yes.
And so they're all these old guys, in their 80s, 90s. And of course, I would, cruise along, and I was like 45 or something. And, and these men would look at me, give me the glad eye. And it used to make me so happy.
The glad eye.
Well, you know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah. And just to see how, like, even to notice that even these old guys, wizened and weathered and
Yeah.
whatever, because they were appreciating me, it gave me a sense of validation. So that kind of was what put me onto it,
Mm.
this whole thing. But also I had noticed, in earlier years that how often I made love with the man because he wanted to make love with me.
Mm.
And that gave me validation. Ah, good. He wants to make love with me, therefore I'm available, rather than, what is actually happening here? How much love is there? How much respect? How much
Mm.
presence, and so on.
Mm.
You asked about self-pleasuring, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's, it is the way people manage on their own. At the same time, it's not so healthy,
Mm-hmm.
because what we're doing is we're building up tension to a peak and then discharging it, and the energy moves down, and there's always this residue of tension that remains in the body,
Mm.
and that then backfires later on. And so it's always good to check to see, even if that few seconds of experience was nice, it's good to check how you feel afterwards.
Mm.
And because it does cause a level of instability in us women, men also. And this is the problem with sex. We always look at the peak and did we achieve it and how great it was, but we never look at, like, how did I actually feel afterwards? And even notice, 2-3 days later, suddenly I had this emotional freak out that we
Mm-hmm.
would never connect it to how we had sex. And the masters, Osho, says, when energy rises in the system, silence is the byproduct. When energy moves downwards in the system, tension is the byproduct. So
Wow.
this discharge, forcing the body to discharge, because
Mm.
we do it with our minds,
Mm.
in the long term doesn't serve us. I think there's a way you can do it maybe more different, like spread the energy, not get too tense, let it rather spread through the whole body.
Mm.
Um, And I do know many women are dependent on masturbation.
Mm.
And I have had, or even, or clitoral stimulation, insects and so on. And I've had so many women who have had the curiosity to drop it to say how much better they feel.
Mm.
So it's just like that. It's a matter that one has to just explore. There is a level of addiction to
Mm-hmm.
that high point also, with men. It does bring a lot of more tension into the vagina, into the uterus, ovaries. For men, a lot of masturbation is really not healthy.
Mm.
So much energy lost, and it also results in, less sensitivity in the penis and so on. So it is accepted as a way of sexuality, but I would encourage women just to see if they can change the way they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not get too tense, be more in the awareness, to do it perhaps less often. Often we use sex as a way of releasing stress.
Mm.
So things get a bit wobbly, you start to feel a bit horny, or you can't cope, you masturbate,
Mm.
and then it's gone. But again, if you look a little bit down the road, you pay for it.
Yeah.
So with men, there's a lot of, there's men who sometimes masturbate several times a day.
Mm.
And so like I said, there is an addictive quality, and but also, the stresses in our society are so great
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
survival and success and whatever. And this resonates ultimately in the base center
Mm.
and
Mm.
causes a disturbance and a tension. And the easiest way, of course, is to masturbate. Much better would be to move it, have a jog, move the energy in a different way, release the tension out of the body. And it's much better for women to start to be more connected with their breasts, because female sexual energy is not raised from the clitoris, it's raised from the breasts.
Mm.
This is where, we put this polarity thing, because the vagina she receives, but energy is raised from the breasts, and all women know that to a certain extent, perhaps not the depth of it.
Yeah.
And to start to meditate on the breast, because it's through the breasts that one reaches to the highest and deepest orgasmic experiences.
Mm.
And so it's more like, for a woman, single or in a couple, to start to hold the breast, to melt with them, merge with them, not do anything with them, not
Mm.
stimulate, because a lot of nipple stimulation, can easily lead to excitement, and then you're, wanting to discharge. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so, I love that. Thank you so much. So interesting. And I've had, what about women who've said they've never orgasmed in their life? What would you
it's a,
say to them?
it's a blessing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because then you're not, they have that problem because we have this idea
Mm.
that we have to have these peak orgasms. When
Mm.
a woman doesn't have that, it's really a positive thing.
Mm.
It means it's much easier for her to shift into another style. And so it's just interesting. The mind will always make problems. And, women come to my groups, and we spend the whole week talking. And, yeah, but what about if and it's just like, we are forcing the body
Mm.
anyway to do that. It's not happening naturally. Sometimes orgasms happen just by themselves,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then that's fine. But it's this, we work and we work and we pump and we try and build up enough intensity and sensation. And there's one story I sometimes tell, is that I remember I was in Brazil and ended up talking with this woman about sex, and she was telling me that she had this incredible sex life,
Mm.
from the time she started until like her mid-30s. And she'd never had an orgasm, and her sex life was great. And then one day, she had a conventional orgasm, and from that moment, her sex life went down.
Wow.
So suddenly she had this goal, this expectation. I want it again. So I think it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's also so important to get a distinction between orgasm and orgasmic. Like they
Yes.
kind of used interchangeably, but
Mm.
orgasm is an event with a peak and a drop off of a few seconds. Orgasmic is more like a state where the whole body gets filled with life and delicate, fine, ecstatic sensations.
Mm.
But that does not happen
Mm.
usually in the conventional way. It's a whole other space.
Mm.
Um, so those women who have a difficulty with orgasm are probably a lot more likely to experience the orgasmic state because they're more relaxed. You know,
Mm.
they don't have ideas. Well, they still have to break down the idea, but they don't have experiences that they want again and again and again. And that's the thing for us to realize. We want the same thing in sex again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And everything changes. Seasons change, you know, so
Mm.
only sex is not allowed to change. But if we were just, you know, more natural people, things would organically change and we would move along. But there's this huge pressure and expectation on sex.
Mm. So true. Wow, that's fantastic. And you know, one of the thoughts that I just had, and about women not having orgasm, and I love that because I can't wait to reframe that for women who I work with, but also that the vagina can carry a lot of tension. Do you think that that could also, because you know there can be orgasm that actually happens in relaxation, but do you think that there's a general, or most likely a general tension for women as well in the vagina and, you know, in that area because of all the pent up kind of energy around sex, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, through the style of having sex, a lot of friction, you know, causes the walls to be
Mm,
hardened and less receptive.
mm, mm,
And if you look physically, we're always clenching the vagina a little bit. So it requires awareness and widening out and so on. Um, yeah, no, for sure. There's a lot of factors.
yeah. So interesting. And,
The problem often is that men feel gratified only if their woman has an orgasm, then they did a good job. So that's often a point of tension.
mm,
Uh, but you know, all these things do unwind and work themselves out if we start to, you know, enter the whole field, you know, in sex and everything with more awareness.
absolutely. It's like, to me, it was just like opening up a whole new universe, and you know, the universe of many possibilities as well, because nothing was ever the same, like what you said. And I really liked how you talked about the seasons, everything changes, because that's exactly my experience as well. Just the body's never the same from one day to the next. And to
Yes,
overlay the
yes.
expectations of the last lovemaking session onto the next one is just not real. We just have to let it go, don't we?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about the healing aspect of Tantra. That you know, for women who've been through things like surgery and cesareans and things like that, and I know that it is a passion for you, you know, sexual healing, and I just wonder if there's you know, just from the women who you've worked with, what you've seen, or what opinions you have about how Tantra can help women basically support their healing.
Well, you know, that from the moment you start to change the way you make love, you initiate a healing process.
Mm,
You know, the consciousness, this will displace old unexpressed feelings. It will also help to integrate areas that have been one is disconnected from. So I don't like to see it as something separate. I think it's all as one. The moment you start to bring a change, healing happens.
mm,
And very specifically between the penis and vagina, because they have a different magnetism, you know, that they're like a complementary unit. One is regenerating cells
mm,
and So it is marvelous, but I think it's also, again, we go into the mind, what heals, how do we heal, but just the whole way is a healing and integrating journey.
Mm.
And not even to see it as a journey like you're going to reach anywhere, but it's just, if women try, they will just start to notice that they feel better.
Yeah.
And to be aware, just really to repeat myself, is that old tensions that are held in the system, or old memories held in the system, will filter up. So that's also why it's good to know this emotions, feelings thing, because when things come up and we understand that it's not to do with how my partner touched me now, but perhaps how I was touched when I was a little girl, and then we can filter these so many confusions and things through the system, and then they're out of the system.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I just love it because it's happening in the body, and it's happening on a cellular level. And
Yes.
it's just, it's a byproduct of awareness, really, isn't it?
Yes.
This healing that spontaneously happens. And
Right.
yeah, that was my experience too. And
yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk these days about somatic experiencing, and it's becoming the way for healing. And I have not done anything in that area, but so many people who are trained in somatic experience have come to me and say, actually, what you are doing is somatic experiencing.
Yeah.
So in that way, this helps me really to trust the material. I mean, it's not that I don't trust it, but because I started in such an organic way, and I'm just sharing what's true for me, and because we're all so similar, assuming it's true for everybody else. So I've just done that in a very kind of intuitive way. But when you get confirmations like that, or people say, oh wow, this is exactly what they teach us in Vipassana, other people come to me and say, oh wow, this is what is taught by Thich Nhat Hanh. So you go, oh cool, okay. That's really great.
Yeah. And I think that's why, to me, the Making Love Retreat and the women's work, that it's just so holistic. It's it does encompass, and I guess truth is truth. And I remember Jean saying once, that when he first read your work, it was the truth of it that resonated. And I think when there is something like that, it does run through many modalities or many teachings, and there are links.
Otherwise it wouldn't make sense, would it? If there wasn't this thread, it just didn't make sense. So that all of these different inroads are different, are separate, but that that there is a truth. And I mean, if you listen to the Barry Long tapes, which tapes, they're now CDs.
These are the Making Love CDs.
Yes, and he's very provocative, and he says things that, especially for men, are tough. But you can hear the ring of truth.
Yes.
And the same with Osho. It's just it's true. And so yeah.
It's interesting that, because I know, I don't know that many of the women listening are aware of Barry Long, but I know that he does trigger men quite a lot. I know men who've been quite triggered by that, and almost to the point of I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to try it out. But I love how you've integrated that teaching to be accessible for men and women. Yeah. So, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So, okay, that's beautiful. I'm really grateful for what you've shared. And so I wonder if we could finish up then with, well, actually, I do have one little question, and whether you'd be happy to answer it. Where do you feel we're kind of going as a species, really, in the area of sexuality? I know it's a broad question, but, like, yes, how in relation to your teaching and how we're going as a planet, I guess. Because I guess I asked this question because I feel, and I know that I've seen it in your writing, that this is a step forward in human evolution. And there seems to be this big polarity right now between sort of this teaching and also, you know, the uprising of porn and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, is that a bit kind of I guess really I'm kind of answering my own question. It's really about the individual, isn't it? That's all we can really be.
Well, absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. But at the same time, you know, this whole porn thing is making us less intelligent, less clear.
Mm,
You know, this whole misunderstanding in sex,
mm,
and to change the way you have love, make sex, have love,
yeah.
and you know, you do evolve through it, and it's as simple as that. So, you know, I just concern myself with doing what I do and hoping that it reaches people, and there's more and more people, you know, in the field who are spreading the word. So
Mm,
um yeah, it's a tragedy. It's a real
mm,
tragedy.
yeah.
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 And I remember, like, in your TEDx talk, Noosa, you gave quite some figures about, you know,
Mm,
how this is impacting on young boys already,
mm,
you know, before they've really even grown into sex.
mm,
The porno things, you know, like erectile problems and, you know, etc., etc.
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a big question, but we just can do what we do, and
Mm,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Beautiful. So, if we were to finish up with, like, if you just had, you know, like the important essence or the important things that women need to remember, I guess, if there were three things, or the one most important thing, what would you want to leave with the women who are
Well, you know
listening?
that the body is the bridge to the reality.
Mm,
So it is so important that women develop an inner connection to their bodies
mm,
and become more present rather than projecting, you know, learning to rest
mm,
inside themselves. And that, you know, as women, we are naturally feminine if we develop that presence.
mm,
So femininity is not something you do. It's more, if you come back to your body and your nature, then there is femininity arises. Um, so that, you
mm,
know, just on a day by day level, start to be more conscious in the body, because, and this is what I find the big missing link. Like, here we are at the end of an interview, and we're
mm,
only now talking about the body
mhm,
in that sense.
mm,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Um, to be present, to be here. Um, it's something people don't naturally seem to be connected to the insides of their body.
Mm,
And, you know, again, that's a process, but it's more like just, you know, sinking in, feeling the body from the inside, scanning, softening,
mm,
relaxing,
mm,
widening,
mm,
um, observing how tense we get, you know. Um, and this is the thing, it's not so easy to talk about the body. This is probably why we're talking about it at the end, because it's still in the mind. But when I have
mm,
people, and you know yourself, when you have people in front of you, you can really take them through the steps
mm,
of how to
mm,
create more
yeah.
inner body awareness. So it has always been a mystery to me that why people don't have this. I don't know how come I have it.
Mm,
I don't know why. Maybe I grew up in Africa and in nature, very strong with Africans and so on. But for me, inside my body has always been home.
mm.
Um, so
Even since a
definitely,
little girl.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I told you once that I grew up, you know, really in a farm. We didn't have electricity. We had a generator at night.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the generator would go off when the last person went to bed. So the nights were always pitch black.
Mm,
And from a kid, I didn't sleep very much. But I would lie for hours in bed in the dark, just getting blissed out.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And I can say that I had my first orgasmic experience when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can remember it as clear as day. I can pull those inexperiences back. And, there was a kind of a little lead up to how that happened. It's not so important. So many of us do have these expanded experiences, somewhere along the way. But it does require this being more introverted, not all our attention just leaking out, concerned about the outside, the others. And, that's why it's helpful to, like do a women's workshop with you, or, read some of the books where it talks about presence and different love keys and really explains this polarity in the body. So definitely this meditation on the breasts is really, really helpful for women to get a new sense. One thing that for single women is, often women have this longing for another man. So it's kind of like a bit mental, and they meet another man and immediately they're kind of projecting, could this be the guy?
Yeah.
and Barry Long, he said, if you follow that thread back into the body, you'll find it arises in the solar plexus. So what he suggested to women, single women, was rather hold the awareness in the solar plexus rather than the dream. Hold it at its source. And that also then will totally change your, he doesn't say this, but when I've done it myself, totally changes your connection and the kind of gestalt and radiance that you have.
Absolutely.
So for women, generally speaking, the solar plexus is an excellent place to have awareness. But especially if we, in this thing with, single women always hoping that we're going to meet somebody. And so we're kind of more outside of ourselves. So just to come to the solar plexus and just rest there and be there.
Beautiful. They're beautiful. That's fantastic. Oh, gee. Thank you so much, Diana. It's just been amazing. And, I just feel so privileged, and I feel so happy and lucky for the women listening. And, I personally, I just feel that, well, number one, I think it's fantastic that you're a female and who's brought these two teachings from these two men through. So there's some significance in that. It's almost like you were born to do this. And, I just think it's a great service to humanity. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all women for what you've brought to us and to, men and women. So
that is sweet, Janet. I mean, it's all happened by itself. So in that sense, I don't, it's sweet what you say, but it's like I don't have this feeling that I've done this great thing.
But that's what's so beautiful about you. You're so humble about it, and and it couldn't. It has to come from that. So. Well, thank you so much, and we're just so grateful, and we'll let you go. So,
well, Janet, the interview is not complete without thanking you for your sincerity and your, your basic intelligence and intuition. Otherwise, this would not be here.
Thank you. Appreciate
and writing that book together was really great.
We had fun, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Much love. Take care.
Thank
love
you.
to all the
You
women.
too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.